Hello everyone, my name is Drew, and today we're going to be talking about the deck that I played in the December 2025 tournament. That's right, the name of the deck is Dippet 532 Seeker, which is a reference to Harry Potter Quidditch Champions, I don't want to call it an MMO, because it's not massive. It's an online game, which tries to emulate Quidditch and fails relatively badly. Um, but it's a 6v6 team thing where you have a keeper, a seeker, a one beater. They combine the role two into one, and then you have three chasers. So the general idea of this deck is so we are starting Dippet because all of our characters have a Hogwarts house, and so spending actions playing them, either replacing them or doing 2 damage, very useful. Um, so we're gonna get right into it. We're gonna start with the not exactly important cards. Like they were important. They did a lot of carrying in my game, and that's the items. We have 2 items in this deck. We are on a full playset of both Finals Program and Quidditch Plaque. Finals Program, when you play it, you can find a Quidditch card, reveal it, put it, or a Quidditch player, reveal it, put it in your hand, shuffle, and then Classic. I think it's either Based or Doggone Alley. The classic 2 cost book text of you can use an action, discard it to draw 3 cards. Being able to find that last player, or that Oliver the Captain, or even just like a Harry the Seeker if you've got nothing better to do, just to play it and get some more cards from playing lessons. Just absolutely amazing. Knocks the entire thing out of the park. Um, and 2 cost, being able to just drop it early is really nice. Quidditch Plaque. Your Quidditch players need 1 fewer action to play. And the text that got cut off on Accio, or on Untap, is during your turn you can discard it from play, and then you can return a non-healing Quidditch player to your hand. Do we have any healing Quidditch players? I don't think we do off the top of my head, but I do kind of like that avenue of design space potentially. And now we get into the real meat of the deck. We have Oliver the Captain, the main way this deck wins. The whole before each of your turns, if you have a full Quidditch team, you win the game. He is the only keeper in this deck. I am not on the keeper from Quidditch World Finals, mainly because if Oliver the Captain's in play, he already counts as a keeper for himself, and if I can't play him, then I'm just kind of, SOL. Um, but yeah, he's the only keeper in the deck. Outside of that, I guess we're going to go on to the Seekers. We're on, as I say, format staple Harry the Seeker. Once during each of your turns when you use an action, play a Quidditch lesson. You may also draw a card. Very good card. Just the fact that you can use basically one action to do 2 things at once is really nice. Being able to have that lesson replace itself with potentially a better card, or even just another lesson so you can do it again on your next turn is amazing. Then we have Cho. At the end of each of your turns, if an opponent has more lessons in play than you can search for up to 2 Quidditch lessons. One goes to play and the other to your hand, and then you shuffle. Very good, paired with Derrick and Bole, who is also in this deck, but we'll talk about that here in a bit, and also relatively decent for ramping. Also, just generally, a really good shuffle engine. I know we don't have anything in the game currently that cares about shuffling, I don't think, or searching your deck, but hopefully that's a design space I think would be really interesting. But yeah, just generally like the shuffling, being able to rearrange the cards in your deck is pretty good, especially when you've been like top decking nothing but lessons for the last 4 turns. And then after that, we have Cedric. Once per game, you can discard your hand, draw 6 cards. Very good, especially when you have no cards in hand, or when the only cards you have in hand are duplicates of characters you already have in play. Very good with cards not on this deck, like Biting Gnome or Godric Gryffindor, things like that. Onto the beaters. We have Fred and George beaters. Before each of your turns, if you have a Quidditch item played, do 2 damage to an opponent. He's in here for 2 reasons. First off, so I can do the whole thematic thing of Oliver the Captain winning with a pure Gryffindor team. And second off, the incidental 2 damage from like having a Finals Program or a Quidditch Plaque just sitting on the battlefield. Absolutely phenomenal. Absolute cinema, as the kids say. And then Derrick and Bole, as previously mentioned, relatively good synergy with Cho. You can use an action to discard a lesson from your hand. If you do, choose an opponent, they get one fewer action during their next turn. Yeah, just generally a good card. It's like a really bad locked in. You have to spend 3 actions to reduce an opponent's action count, and you also basically set your own action count to 1 if you want to consistently, reliably use it. Onto the chasers. We are about to get into bad decision territory. This is the part of the deck where I'm like, this is the mistake that I made. Don't make the same mistakes I did. I'm on the 3 Gryffindor chasers, which quite notably all do things with matches in play. This deck does not have any in the main deck or in the sideboard, which is really funny. So we have Katie Bell. Her effect is relatively irrelevant. If there's a match in play, whenever a card does damage to you, it does 1 less damage. Alicia Spinnet, if there's a match in play, whenever your cards that needs Quidditch power does damage, does 1 more damage. And then Angelina Johnson, before each of your turns, if there's a match in play, you get 1 more action that turn. Once again, these 3 do absolutely nothing outside of being chasers. And then the last one, who's actually really useful, Marcus Flint. Once per game, you can make your opponent choose 3 cards in their hand and discard them. Very good for when your opponent has just solved like a... What adventures am I on in this deck? Am I on anything good? So I'm on Gaze into the Mirror. So if your opponent discards their hand, or discards most of their hand to solve Gaze into the Mirror, and they're refilling their hand, just throwing out a Marcus Flint and making them discard 3 more cards is really nice. Now we're going to be on to the 2 cards that do trigger Dippet, but aren't Quidditch players. So they're good, but they're not that good. We have Snape, just for the healing and for the providing a single power for the cards in the sideboard. And then we have Ron. Ron is very much like Quidditch Plaque, except kind of better, because he lets me play Snape and Rita, which we'll talk about here in a bit, just for 1 action, which is really nice. And I mean, I'm not all that worried if I do have to spend a second action on them. And then we have Rita. I do have a number of unique cards in this deck. I believe it was 16 out of the total. No, it'd be something like that. But yeah, just a consistent, reliable damage dealer. And I am on 18 lessons. I'm not sure how I feel about that count. I think with the number of characters that I'm on, 18 is a fairly reasonable number, especially with the 2 cards in the deck that do require power, and the cards in the sideboard that do require power. On that topic of the sideboard, let's go ahead and dive right into it. I am split between 2 copies of Filch Hogwarts Caretaker, using an action to discard an event from play, and 1 copy of Argus Filch, using an action to discard an adventure from play. I think I might swap that, or just cut Filch Hogwarts Caretaker altogether, and just run 3 copies of Argus Filch. Events don't really harm me all that much, not right now. I haven't seen very many events that harm characters being played. None that I can remember off the top of my head, none that I remember from playing this deck in the last tournament. We're going to go on to the 2 cards, or the 2 spells that I have in the sideboard. We have Sloth Grip, 5 cost. During your opponent's next turn, you can prevent all but the first 3 damage done to you. Basically a better/worse Neville, being able to prevent damage at least for 1 turn if they're about to like double Exploding Charm or something. Or if they have a whole bunch of characters, or not characters, if they have a whole bunch of creatures in play, just being able to only take 3 and then live and maybe win on the next turn is kind of nice. Vanishing Referee, being able to remove an opponent's character, very nice for the mirror match. I don't believe I encountered that because this deck placed pretty poorly overall. But I mean, it just felt like a good include. Next, we have Rogue Bludger. This card is in here for the sole reason of solving Pep Talk, because character decks are quite notably bad at doing that. However, also the incidental 3 damage from it, if I ever do end up playing it, or the extra 2 from having Fred and George beaters. Generally nice. It never really came up. I don't think I saw a Pep Talk. On the topic of pep talk, let's move into the adventures. We have, as mentioned before, Gaze into the Mirror. Prevent all damage done to you by spell cards. Solving is your opponent chooses 5 spell cards in their hand and discards them, and the reward is they get an extra action that turn. So on one hand, if they don't have 5 cards in hand or 5 spell cards, it's very nice to just sit there behind the wall and not take damage from Exploding Charm, Alley Blast, Spiral Dive, things like that. I chose Gaze into the Mirror instead of Through the Arch for the sole reason of I was fully expecting people to play Flitwick, because Spells is a really good deck in general, and I was kind of surprised when I didn't run into that. And then we have In the Stands and Riding the Centaur, which both do effectively the same thing. In the Stands says your opponents can't play creature cards. Riding the Centaur says prevent all damage done to you by your opponent's creatures. In the Stands, the solve is 4 creatures in their hand and discards them to draw a card. Riding the Centaur is 5 cards in play, bounce them to their hand to draw a card. So, identical rewards. Actually, it's the same reward. Both for almost the exact same effect. Riding the Centaur, sure, your opponent can stack up a whole bunch of Welsh Green Dragons and giant squids and things like that, and then bounce 4 lessons and then deal a whole bunch of damage to you. And then In the Stands just stops all of those shenaniganry. Outside of that, I don't think there's very much off the top of my head. Feel free to comment down below if you have any questions. Reach out to me on Discord. I'm pretty active in the Revival Discord. Outside of that, thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.